In September 2003, Canada's International Development Research Centre brought together 30 experts from around the world to discuss how information and communication technologies can help to reduce poverty. The participants included development specialists, academics, and Nobel Prize-winning economists. For 2 days, ideas and experiences were exchanged and questions raised. Where should alliances be formed? How can successful approaches be scaled up? What are the keys to regulatory reform? And what is the way forward?
Information technology can become a tool of either decreasing the inequalities that already exist in the world or increasing it.
This is a seismic change that's taking place.
The availability and the use of this technology is no longer optional.
And these inequalities include inequalities along the lines of human rights, of inclusion, the whole issue of class, of language, of the North-South divide, and increasingly of gender.
We cannot fiddle at the edges any longer. We need some sort of dramatic solution.
We've got to rethink everything from scratch.
Can we wait? The answer to that's clearly no.
One of the people attending the meeting was a Bangladeshi banker, Mohammed Yunus. He is the founder and president of the Grameen Bank, a bank specializing in making small loans to poor people, especially poor women. Today, the bank's loan portfolio includes ICT investments that were first met with skepticism. That story begins in the mid-1990s when the government invited applications for mobile phone licenses.
And in the government, everybody was curious. They thought we are pulling legs. You are a bank for the poor people, give $50, $100, $200 loans. It totally irritated everybody around. Why should mobile phones go in the hands of the poor women?
The mobile phone, which was for a very long time in the West seen as a tool for the rich, in our countries it is a day-to-day instrument of survival, even among the poorest communities.
And people keep asking that, well, she's an illiterate person, she wouldn't even know how to push those buttons and dial a number and so on. Why are you insisting on giving these telephones to the poor people? Who would she call? We say, well, she's not going to call anybody. She will sell the service of the telephone to the people who need to use telephones. Then she will make money.
People will say, look, you need survival, you need food, you need health, you need this. What do you mean computers?
ICT could get into a much more successful mode if it tries to form alliances with a bit of the political agitators and the public reason advocates, a bit with the basic education people, a bit with the gender expansion thing. So that's the direction that I would suggest.
And about 6 or 7 months later, I was going around in the villages talking to these women who got this new telephone, how they are doing. At the middle of the discussion, I said, do you have any problem in pushing those buttons to dial a number?
Remember, you've got the cost reduction driving forces in the technology working all the time in your favor. So things that look very expensive now to implement on a large scale may not look so daunting later on.
So one woman stood up and she said, why don't you give me a number and blindfold me? And if I fail to dial it the first time, I'll return your telephone. I don't need a telephone. I was stunned. I was stunned because I wish all those people who were doubting in the ability of these women were there.
There's certainly a clearness that privatization on its own has not been a successful strategy.
It's clear that the proper regulation of telecommunications is absolutely critical.
Liberalization of the regulation is the major barrier right now, at least in Indonesia. Without any license from the government, we basically steal the frequencies.
There is no e-government without e-citizenship, and there is no e-citizenship without citizenship.
Now we have more than 30,000 telephone ladies, and these women never saw telephone in their life. Many of these women never saw electricity in their life. 80% of the people in Bangladesh have no access to electricity today. The amazing thing is the income they earn from this service. Minimum income is $50 per month, net profit from the telephone service, and goes all the way to $500 per month. Imagine a country with per capita income less than $400, a woman with a mobile phone earning $500 a month.
I think that ICT technologies have become a fundamental infrastructure for doing business in this new economy. So, for example, these undersea fiber connections for each country, they're the equivalent of deep water ports. And so you wouldn't have a lot of argument over whether or not a country needed to have deep water ports.
These telephones are internet-enabled telephones. Unfortunately, we have not developed content of the internet yet, so that service remains unutilized. But the moment content is developed and people find service of it, I'm sure these 30,000 telephone ladies will become the internet ladies in no time. Quickest way to get out of poverty right now is to have one mobile phone.
There's no doubt that there are systemic changes taking place in the nature of work around the world that are driven in large part by ICTs. And really the question is whether the working poor are able to keep up with these changes and protect themselves using ICTs.
If you agree with the view that the opportunities are just enormous and indeed makes the least well-off people benefit most, you have to do something about it.